Okay, I'll show you two pictures.
Okay.
Tell me what you see.
Superman?
Mm-hmm.
Superman.
That's correct.
Batman, duh.
Uh-huh.
Batman.
Yep.
Oh, Green Arrow.
Yep.
Who is that?
Nobody knows. Stephen Amell was never Green Arrow. Now I know that is the coldest take for comic book fans, and this has been beaten to death. However, Stephen still doesn't get it. I didn't see this until recently, but he said a few things in response to Peacemaker making a Green Arrow joke in season 1. He said, and I quote, "I didn't appreciate that. Maybe don't take shots at us. I should be mad at James Gunn for writing that." Essentially, he thinks Peacemaker was making a joke about him. This guy. I promise you, Stephen, when James wrote that joke, he was not thinking of you. We were all thinking of this guy, the real Oliver Queen. But every time you open your mouth, it's like we gotta do this all over again. How many times do we need to keep teaching you this lesson, old man? Seriously though, this show gave us a false impression of a beloved character for would-be fans, and then squandered the source material for old fans of Ollie. I respect the work it takes to make a TV series. God knows I couldn't do it. But to be so sensitive and delusional about a show that barely resembles a character from the comics, why expect the comic book director to be thinking of you? Especially when you know you guys are trying your hardest to be Batman without being Batman. Instead of boxing glove arrows and corny jokes, you're talking like Christian Bale Batman and being a hacker man. Instead of rocking a goatee and doing a Robin Hood impression, you're wearing a very dark green and putting on that Battinson eyeshadow. Instead of having the only love interest Oliver should have, Black Canary, this show focuses on a Barbara Gordon Oracle clone for you to romance. Felicity. Not only did you guys squander the source material, but you took some of the worst shit from Batman. Nobody wants that nasty ass Bruce Timm romance. Barbara Gordon and Bruce Wayne should never be together. Now I feel tempted to go on and continue bashing the show, but also going into what the show had to offer. But this video is less about me dissecting and critiquing Arrow, as I think we've seen plenty of videos like that, and it's more of me showing what Oliver Queen should actually be like, and hopefully by the end of this, I can turn a few views into Green Arrow fans. Now, I'll be going through 3 small excerpts from his history from 3 separate runs. I was originally planning on doing 4 and including the newest run, but I didn't want to overstuff this video. I want to start out with what the Arrow show actually adapted from, and more importantly, all the things they left out. This is the comic that inspired the Arrow show, so much so that they created a character in honor of the writer, Andy Diggle. Don't you see the resemblance? They took the rich dumb kid who was stranded on the island and has to survive plots from this book specifically. However, this comic has a few key things that make it work as a Green Arrow story. First, let's do a recap. This comic is pretty similar. They both started out with Oliver being a fuck up, and in the comic they have this plot where his assistant slash butler slash best friend betrays him for money, leaving him in the ocean, and then he washes up on the island. In the show, they pulled an Amazing Spider-Man and made up a convoluted plot involving his dad. I don't hate that, I just think it's funny both of those things came out in the same exact year. Now from here things are mostly the same. He survives on the island, finding happiness and getting good at shooting arrows. Then we learn the island is actually inhabited by criminals exploiting the natives to funnel their heroin across the world. That story isn't essential, but it's a good vehicle to tell you about Oliver Queen. When he comes across the first captive native, he reacts emotionally, and seeing her distraught, he cracks a joke, saying they shouldn't be afraid of him, quote unquote, he's a little pussycat. He's not the silent type, I mean he talks non-stop most of the time, he's not really the most stealthy, as some random lady who was pregnant mind you, was able to sneak up on him. And most importantly, he's a little flamboyant, quick to tell jokes. After getting a grenade launched at him, he then gets nursed back to health from the same woman he came across. What I find funny is that she nurses him by giving him opium, which is, that's insane. It's not even the first time Oliver has gotten high on that stuff, despite his very strong stance on drugs, which we'll talk about later. This becomes a problem as Oliver allows himself to get hooked on it and snaps at a savior when she says, dude, you gotta wean off. That's what I like about him though. He really is just some guy who's good at shooting arrows. He doesn't have this Tibetan monk level discipline. Now I want to skip ahead because what the show took from this is the island, the survivor story, and the hooded costume. Oliver acts very different here, especially when he's fighting. Green Arrow is way more like Spider-Man or Nightwing in that he can't stop talking sometimes. What's really cool is this move, where he shoots the arrow right into the barrel of the gun, causing it to explode when the person fires. He does this a lot from the comics I read, and it's sick. He also has this moment in the run where he takes the arrowhead off and says I should patent this, then firing it at the gunman and thinking knockout arrow, try pulling that with the gun. He's having fun with himself, fighting crime and being a hero, but he has a flamboyance to it. Now here's the important part. He thinks to himself, how can he take on this entire operation? What can one man do? I could distract them, but then they kill slaves. What's worse is that his savior is now spotted by a sniper, so what does he do? Oliver says, what the hell? The stealthy approach was never really my style. Time to make some noise. He then hits a propane tank, causing it to explode and taking out the sniper. At the same time, the slaves are freed by the pregnant woman, and Green Arrow's actions rally them into revolt. That is his style. He's a man of the people. He isn't a ninja or some stealthy badass, he's Robin Hood, and Robin Hood loved the people. He rallies them into action, brings them hope with his performance of justice. Is he arrogant? Yes. Is he self-righteous? Yes. Is he kind of an idiot sometimes? Yes, more than you'd think. However, at the core of Green Arrow is someone who looks out for the little guy. When I was a kid, watching JLU introduced me to so many new characters. I learned about Etrigan and all the cool dark fantasy in DC. I learned about the Question and started reading O'Neill stuff. But above all, I resonated with Green Arrow for keeping the League honest, for providing pushback to a really annoying version of Superman, but most of all for the iconic speech he gave in the middle of a crisis where the League decided to disband. Oliver says, if you're quitting because you think you've done your fair share, fine, we'll throw you a parade. But if you're quitting because it's easier than continuing the fight, then you're not the heroes we thought you were. The world needs the Justice League, and the Justice League needs you, Superman. That shit had me standing up clapping, goddamn. Oliver may not always know what to do, and definitely doesn't always know what to say, as we'll see, but he is a man desperately trying to be a voice for the people. Fundamentally, Green Arrow is a political character. I mean, he was saying ACAB before it was popular. To demonstrate where this really popped off, let's talk about the classic Hard Traveling Heroes by the great Denny O'Neil. These times are described as the best years of Ollie and Hal's life. However, when they first meet, it is obvious how different they are, especially Hal. I mean, he is incredibly different here than how modern writers adapt him. But we start with Green Lantern finding these kids roughing up a fat dude. Hal doesn't bother to ask what's going on and just puts a stop to it, saving the man and sending the kid to jail. As Hal checks up on the man, a can comes flying and hits him right on the head. The entire apartment complex is booing this man, and as Hal threatens one of the kids, Oliver steps in like he's gonna do something against the Green Lantern. I respect the intent though. Hal is confused. Why is a superhero defending these people who are breaking the law? I'm telling you guys, Hal Jordan was whipped back in the day. He used to respect authority to a fault. Green Arrow, on the other hand, is a slave to his emotions, and he sees a people downtrodden and exploited, and he reacts. Ollie tells him how this 80-year-old woman lives alone now, and she has no one to support her because Hal jumped to conclusions and threw that boy in jail. A boy who had to drop out of school to work and provide for his grandmother. Oliver tells Hal how this landlord hikes up the rent, also he can make a buck on turning the dump into a parking lot. Oliver gets upset and says, I hope you enjoyed playing superhero out there. I hope it did a lot of good for your ego. Hal's like, whoa, easy. You've no cause to yell at me. I have a job and I do it. Without skipping a beat, Oliver says, seems I've heard that line before, at the Nazi war trials. While the comparison is intense, what he says is true. If you defend the law, no matter how just or unjust it is, you cannot call yourself a hero. Authority can be wrong, and it often is. And it's up to individuals like Green Arrow and later Green Lantern to step in and do the right thing. We see this in the Superman movie executed perfectly. This all culminates into a great moment where this elderly black man asks Hal a question. I've been reading about you and how you work for the blue skins, and how on planet someplace you helped out the orange skins. And you've done considerable good for the purple skins. Only they're skins you've never bothered with, the black skins. I want to know, how come? Answer me that, Mr. Green Lantern. And Hal just looks defeated. I can't. Now, Hal wants to do the right thing here, but he puts too much faith in the powers that be to guide him towards that direction. This run really changes both of these men for the better. Oliver, the hothead, learns how to become more measured and less emotional. Hal learns how to open up and empathize more with people instead of looking at things being black and white. Now, you should read the rest of this issue to see how much Hal changed from this moment in time, as it's done incredibly well. But this is a Green Arrow video, and I want to tell you about him and all of his flaws. This drug awareness arc of the run is probably the most talked about, simply for the fact that it takes one of the most timely issues in the 80s and unfortunately still relevant today, and it humanizes the people the media deemed to be worthless. After a long arc of the duo trying their hardest to bust a drug racket and even getting high themselves, they rest at Oliver's place. Hal asks, why would someone take drugs, poison themselves? I don't get it. And then Speedy, who's been along for the ride, offers some insight. Say a young cat has someone he respects, looks up to, an older man, and say he leaves, chases around the country, gets involved with others, and ignores his young friend. The guy might need a substitute for friendship. He might seek it in junk. After almost 40 years, that sentiment still rings true. Many kids get into this with bad relationships with their mothers, fathers, no real friends or mentors. At its core, the disease of addiction stems from loneliness, a feeling of emptiness. Now I wonder what older man Speedy must have been talking about. Well, Ollie, the genius, the ever compassionate man he is, who always looks out for the little guy, has a blind spot here, and he lets it be known. Green Arrow says, every time I hear a sob story, I almost lose my lunch. God damn, that is cold. I know he doesn't realize Speedy's talking about himself, but things don't get much better from here. After Ollie says goodnight to Hal, he steps back in only to find Speedy shooting up. Oliver, as dense and stupid as he is in total shock. Speedy just says, who else did you think I was talking about? Dude, this arc really showcases Oliver is not always the compassionate man he tries to be. More often than not, he lets his self-righteous anger take lead, which we see in the next issue, where Oliver smacks the fuck out of Speedy and rants at him, telling him he's a lousy junkie. Speedy feels so alone and defeated, he doesn't even care. He just says, hit me, sure, you're stronger than us weaklings, and a big man like you doesn't need drugs. You get high on your own self-righteousness. He couldn't be more accurate. Oliver then kicks him out, and thinks to himself if maybe he's to blame. He's quickly convinced he's not. Jesus Christ, man. God, you're an asshole. Your surrogate son is on drugs, and you throw him out on the streets. Send him into rehab or something. You're a billionaire. Hal, the more responsible one of the two, is also a lot more kind to Speedy, taking him to Black Canary's place and allowing him to tell his story. Hal says, how did you begin? Speedy says, just curiosity. I heard about these great kicks. Hal of course says, didn't you realize the danger? Speedy says this, I had the sermons thrown at me, but Lantern, your generation has been known to lie. You told us war is fun. Skin color is important. A man's worth is the size of his bank accounts. Why believe your drug rap? Hal, on this journey of self-reflection, just says, I wish I could answer, but I can't. It would be bullshit. Now, Oliver doesn't just say fuck Roy and forget about it. He takes all of his anger, pain, and hate and stops the drug racket, which is actually a pharmaceutical company, from creating these addictive drugs. However, even though that was a great thing to do, he still has no sense of responsibility for his ward, Speedy. The next time we see him is at a funeral of a kid who OD'd, and Speedy tells Oliver he beat his habit. He's himself again. Oliver, only able to be a father during the easy times, goes right into his dad mode and says, good boy. Speedy quickly lets him know what it is and says, don't give me that crap. I only made it because of Hal and Dinah. You turned your back on me. Hal tries to reason with Roy, and Roy says, you know, you inspired me to go cold turkey. Here's my show of appreciation. And Roy lets one fly, connecting right on his chin. Fuck you, Ollie. I was so happy when this happened. Oliver, the usual hothead, surprisingly does nothing and just says, what was that for, in a calm manner. And Roy says, call it sharing. I'm sharing a very small piece of pain I've just gone through in the past few days. The kind of pain thousands of kids are going through every day, because an uncaring and unthinking society turns its back on them. Now this obviously was a message for the audience to educate people on drugs, however it has a great place in the story, as Speedy tells him, you, like the rest of society, attack the symptom, drugs, and not what the root cause is. Oliver isn't a guy who always understands what the problem is or knows what to say. He's self-righteous, but passionate about helping the little guy. He's emotional, a bleeding heart, but can be cold and cruel. Green Arrow is a man kind enough to take a boy in to train him to be a great superhero, but irresponsible enough to abandon him to gallivant around the world. Speedy says to Black Canary that Ollie is her problem now. He needs to help her. He's kind of dumb in a lot of ways, but I like him a lot. And Oliver, after being chewed out, heartbroken, and punched in the jaw, can only feel pride for his boy, as he's turned out to be quite a man, despite all of Ollie's fuck-ups. Now, for the last series I want to talk about is Kevin Smith's time on Green Arrow. This run did a lot, made sense of the crisis events and how Oliver comes back to life, creates one of the coolest villains in the medium of comic books with onomatopoeia, and for me, it gave a great dynamic between Green Arrow and Black Canary, one of my favorite messy couples. Now I remember Arrow had Black Canary, but I forget what happened exactly. I'm almost certain she died and get her sister instead, and there was a whole storyline there, but it doesn't matter too much, because the dynamic in this book is completely different and makes sense when you're coming from hard traveling heroes. Before we get into that, there's a few great moments in this first long arc. So Dinah and Roy figure out Ollie is alive after speaking with his new protege, Mia. This is the girl who found out Oliver's secret identity in one day, because he doesn't bother to change his voice or facial hair. Like, come on Ollie, look at this. So after they realize he's alive and with some new apprentice, they jump to conclusions about what Oliver is doing with her. Roy thinks she's the new Speedy. He's gonna train her, then abandon her to hang out with Hal. Classic Ollie. Dinah says, see, I was thinking classic Ollie for a completely different reason. Now Roy has beef with Oliver too, but he can't stand for this and says, oh come on Dinah, the girl was a teenager. Then Black Canary says, Ollie likes them young, that's all I'm saying. Dude, you have no idea how scared I was. My goat is a fraud. He's been hanging out on Deathstroke's island too much. Roy saves his reputation by saying, yeah, but not that young. Good lord, the guy gets an unsolicited kiss from some fangirl and he never lives it down. Phew, I thought this video was going to turn out a lot worse, but we're here to talk about his future wife, not the allegations. This is Green Arrow 2001, issue 11. Dinah is getting ready for their hot date, and Stargirl lets her know that Ollie arrived, and that she left him with Carter Hall, Hawkman. Dinah quickly jumps out of her chair shouting, oh god, no! You left the ultimate liberal and the ultimate conservative alone in the same room. They're liable to kill each other. After Dinah opens the door, she sees the two men instead laughing, reminiscing on their past. Black Canary jokes that she should check the air ducts for Joker gas, as this was never their vibe before. Black Canary just looks at him like, why are you in costume? And Oliver explains that he was running late, and Carter offers him some clothes. They're being really friendly. Black Canary, as much as I love her, gets a little petty here and says, when's the wedding? Now Oliver isn't wrong for this, but you just came back to life and you spend more time away from your ex than with her, and when you do see her, you focus on your coworker you hated. I'd be a little miffed myself. However, after Dinah leaves, we see that it's all an act. Oliver is actually incredibly nervous and clammy. He's scared she'll figure out he's a loser and call it off, so he puts on a show trying to avoid that, hoping he can ease things back to the way they were before. Now before Oliver goes to change, Carter tells him, hey, treat this with caution, don't rush her into things, given that you just came back from the dead and she's been mourning you since you died. Oliver, the philanderer that he is, lies through his teeth and says, don't worry, I'll be the perfect gentleman. So, onto the date. The two bond over their times as heroes, Dinah filling him in on what Oliver's missed. As they do, Oliver says, Queen, you haven't called me that in a long time. Dinah tells him not to get any ideas. This is as far as this date goes tonight. Understood? Black Canary is cautious. Green Arrow, as we mentioned, is not the most responsible person, and when it comes to his love life, that couldn't be more than true. Oliver then asks Dinah if she's been spending any time with other men. Dinah tells him, yeah, Dr. Midnight. Oliver says, ew. Dinah is like, are you jealous? And Oliver says this, I don't like anyone laying a hand on my girl. This is tricky. On one hand, Oliver wants her to know he has and always will be attached to her. On the other hand, he's basically bum rushing her into a serious relationship, not being careful enough to assess what damage his death did to her and easing her back into normalcy. Dinah rightfully calls him out for this, and Oliver opens up, finally saying that when he was dead, he could only think of her. When he decided to come back, he did so praying he would be with her, and that he will wait for her no matter how long it takes. And just as these two are finally connecting, boom, Riddler pops up like, riddle me this, what's the guy gotta do to get a table around this joint? This is a superhero date after all, it can never go smoothly. As they both rise from their table, they slip right back into their days as partners in crime fighting, and they bond. Side note, I can't imagine how it must feel to put your life on the line with someone and actually save the day. I know when couples work out together, it does wonders for them. Superheroing must be another level. After a fun fight, with Oliver using meat skewers as arrows and a harp as a bow, the two save the day. Hopped up on adrenaline, feeling the nostalgia of their past love, the two embrace, a little too much in my opinion. You are in public! Much later, after they make love, in which Oliver tries taking off Diana's wig, which is crazy, but back in the day she had black hair and wore a wig for her costume, now she dyes it. After they fall asleep, Oliver gets up to leave. He tells himself he soared too close to the sun, that he's terrified she's gonna wake up and realize she's making a mistake, and that it's a good thing no one is awake to see this. Unfortunately, that last part is wrong, because guess who but Hawkman, who says, "We need to have a little chat, Oliver." Uh-oh. Now, is it Carter's business what Diana does in her love life? No. But even though he's acting like an overprotective big brother, not really respecting her agency, he does care about her, and we see just that. They argue, and Carter thinks Ollie is a sleazebag for sleeping with Diana and then dipping. Oliver thinks Carter is being a prude by policing a woman's sex life. In a way, they both have a point. Oliver should not be making decisions like this if he can't stick to them, if he can't be responsible for someone's heart. However, Oliver is also right that Carter is a huge asshole, because when he defends his quote-unquote friend, he says this: "She would have been one of the greats if you ever made an honest woman out of her." Diana gets up like, what? And now she's awake. Instead, it's your hippie-like predilection for non-marital free love that's made her the broken mess she is today. Broken mess? I know you're not talking, Carter. You've been fucking up your life ever since your original wife died and Hawkgirl reincarnated. Then, after Oliver calls him the worst insult Carter can imagine, a Republican, it's straight hands. And Carter hates being called that apparently. After a funny moment where Dinah, instead of putting on some damn clothes, walks out naked to break up the fight between Ollie and Carter. In his genius level brain, Oliver decides to crack a joke after Mr. Terrific uses his T-spheres to cover up Dinah. He says, "Boy, you got some balls on you." You stupid fuck, man. She just leaves after that like, we are not fucking anytime soon. This is the up and down for them. Oliver the hothead, emotional, impulsive, and stupid, but someone who is passionate, a lover, Casanova, a gentleman who is not so gentle. Dinah, who is proud and self-assured, still wants to be vulnerable with this man, but isn't sure if he would do right by her. I find them to be a very realistic couple, where all of their problems are the result of communication issues and letting one's fear get to them. However, after all of that, they still overcome and grow through it. Green Arrow is a man somewhat ashamed to be rich and trying to be like his hero Robin Hood. He is a man of multitudes, of contradictions, a feminist but womanizer, a progressive but can be cold and domineering, selfless but also very self-righteous. He's compassionate enough to take on a protege, but too irresponsible to actually do right by him. Ollie is not the perfect superhero. He's not that smart, or logical, or cold and calculating. He has boxing glove arrows for the same reason he dresses up in a Robin Hood costume. He is trying to be a modern Robin Hood, and Robin Hood was a hero who loved the attention he got. Batman does not. Arrow just saw two billionaires turn superhero, and they thought, hey, they're close enough. They are not. I hope with this video you guys understand why I love the mess that is Green Arrow, and moreover, I hope you start reading one of these runs. Year 1 is probably the easiest to get into, especially for Arrow watchers, as it's only 6 issues and is the most similar to the show. I'm still reading Green Arrow 2001, I just finished Smith's era, and I'm really excited to get into Winnick's run. As people say, it's fantastic. I find Oliver to be a fun hero because he isn't the ideal. He represents a willingness to change himself and the world around him. Thanks for watching, guys. Really appreciate all the support I've been receiving from my videos. I want to thank each and every one of you for this channel finally hitting 10K. I started making the videos almost 3 years ago, and something finally clicked for me. Now that we have gotten past that milestone, you'll see a Discord link in the near future. I'm still working on it and putting on some finishing touches. I also should have a members only video soon about Fraction's first 3 Batman issues because I love what he's doing with them. I have a few ideas swirling around in my head, so I'm not quite sure what will be next, but I promise you this, it will be a banger, trust. Alrighty y'all, peace.